Welcome, everyone. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved with all your heart? Someone you trusted beyond measure only to have them tear your world apart? Today, we dive deep into a story of love, deception, and the ultimate power of forgiveness. This isn't just any story. It's a journey that will challenge your beliefs about loyalty, healing, and the strength of the human spirit. Are you ready for the ride? Let's begin. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we share life-changing lessons. Comment below with your thoughts on forgiveness. Are you ready to let go? Or do you still carry the pain? Share your journey with us because your story matters. Maya was a woman whose life was a testament to perseverance and grace. A successful Black entrepreneur, she had risen from humble beginnings to create a life many envied. Her empire was built on hard work, sleepless nights, and a heart that cared deeply for others. Despite her achievements, Maya remained grounded, known for her kindness and willingness to help those in need. When Maya met Ethan, she felt an instant connection. Ethan was a charming, ambitious man whose struggles mirrored her own in many ways. He spoke passionately about his dreams, and Maya saw in him the potential for greatness. Ethan's humility and drive reminded her of her own journey, and she believed she had finally found someone who could walk beside her in life. Their courtship was filled with laughter, late-night conversations, and shared dreams. Ethan's charisma and vulnerability captivated Maya, and she opened her heart to him fully. She supported him financially when his business ventures faltered and cheered him on during his victories, no matter how small. To Maya, their relationship was not about balance sheets or material wealth. It was about love, trust, and building a future together. Ethan's love, which once seemed so genuine, began to reveal cracks beneath its surface. While Maya devoted herself to their marriage, Ethan's admiration for her success turned into quiet resentment. Her wealth, once a source of awe and pride, now became a shadow that loomed over his ego. Ethan, struggling to define his own identity, saw Maya's accomplishments not as a shared triumph, but as a reminder of his inadequacies. Ethan's internal turmoil grew with each passing day. While he enjoyed the comforts of their lavish lifestyle, he began to feel trapped. The house they lived in, the cars they drove, even the vacations they took, all were funded by Maya's hard work. Each reminder of her financial power chipped away at his self-esteem. Ethan's charm and ambition, which had once drawn Maya to him, now masked a festering bitterness. In private moments, Ethan's thoughts turned darker. He rationalized his growing resentment by convincing himself that he deserved more, not through partnership or effort, but by claiming what Maya had built. The idea of independence began to morph into something far less noble, a plan to secure his future at Maya's expense. He told himself that he had sacrificed enough, that it was his turn to reap the rewards. Despite his inner conflict, Ethan maintained his facade of affection. He whispered sweet words to Maya, held her hand in public, and played the role of the devoted husband. Yet, his actions betrayed his true feelings. He became more withdrawn, frequently making excuses to avoid discussing their future. Small gestures of gratitude, once so natural, now felt forced and hollow. Maya, ever trusting and deeply in love, remained unaware of Ethan's growing detachment. Her generosity knew no bounds. She continued to support him emotionally and financially, believing in the man she had married. She funded his ventures, celebrated his efforts, and dismissed her friends' subtle warnings. To Maya, love was about giving, and she gave Ethan her all. But Ethan's resentment festered like a wound left untreated. He began to see Maya not as a partner, but as an obstacle to his independence. In his mind, her success emasculated him, and her wealth became a symbol of his perceived failures. These feelings planted the seeds of betrayal, as Ethan quietly plotted to take what he believed he was owed. The charm that had once won Maya's heart became a tool for manipulation. Ethan started to test the boundaries of her trust, dipping into their finances under the guise of investments and personal needs. Maya, blinded by love, never questioned his intentions. She believed that their marriage was built on mutual respect and trust, unaware that Ethan's heart was no longer aligned with hers. As the months went on, Ethan's hidden agenda began to take shape. He became more calculated, carefully hiding his actions behind a veil of affection. He knew that Maya's love for him would make her overlook the signs, and he exploited that love without remorse. To the outside world, they seemed like the perfect couple, but within Ethan's mind, a storm was brewing. Ethan's duplicity grew more brazen as his resentment solidified into betrayal. Maya, so full of love and trust, remained blissfully unaware of the plans forming in her husband's heart. She could not see that the man she had built her life with was beginning to see her not as a partner, but as a means to an end. The seeds of his betrayal had been planted, and it was only a matter of time before they would bear their bitter fruit. Ethan's betrayal began subtly, almost imperceptibly. At first, it was small amounts of money transferred from their shared accounts into his own. He justified these actions to himself, convincing his conscience that they were temporary measures to support his ventures. But as his greed grew, so did the magnitude of his deceit. Ethan began forging documents, creating false investment opportunities, and diverting large sums of Maya's hard-earned wealth. Maya, so deeply in love and trusting, never questioned him. When she noticed discrepancies in their finances, Ethan would skillfully weave lies about new opportunities or unexpected expenses. His charm and apparent devotion made her dismiss any doubt she might have had. Maya's unwavering faith in Ethan became her greatest vulnerability. But Ethan was not content with merely siphoning her wealth. His resentment toward Maya and his desire for independence fueled a more sinister plan. He began to detach emotionally, growing cold and distant. He would leave the house for long hours without explanation, his once affectionate words now replaced by indifference. Maya, unaware of the depth of his betrayal, believed the distance was due to stress and tried harder to support him. Then, one day, Ethan shattered her world with a single statement. He told Maya he wanted a divorce. The word struck her like a physical blow, leaving her reeling in disbelief. She pleaded with him, tears streaming down her face, asking what had gone wrong. Ethan, unmoved, claimed they had grown apart, and that he needed to find his own path. His voice was devoid of the love she thought they had shared. Maya's heart broke as she signed the divorce papers, still clinging to the hope that Ethan would come to his senses. But the final betrayal came shortly after. She discovered that Ethan had already remarried, barely months after their divorce was finalized. His new wife, Scarlett, was everything Maya was not: young, glamorous, and white. The news spread like wildfire, and Maya felt the sting of public humiliation on top of her personal heartbreak. Ethan's betrayal was now complete. He had taken not only Maya's wealth but also the dreams they had built together. Maya was left to pick up the shattered pieces of her life, grappling with the devastating realization that the man she had loved with all her heart had used her. Ethan's struggles seemed to melt away under Maya's support. With her encouragement, he began to rebuild his confidence. Maya believed their partnership was one of equals, each lifting the other when needed. Ethan would often tell her how lucky he felt to have her, and Maya's heart swelled with joy each time. She had finally found the soulmate she had prayed for. Their wedding was a dream come true. It was a grand celebration of their love, with friends and family gathered under a canopy of lights. Maya's happiness radiated as she walked down the aisle, her heart brimming with hope for the life they were about to embark on. Ethan's vows were poetic and heartfelt, leaving not a dry eye in the room. In that moment, Maya believed she was stepping into a life filled with love and happiness, hand in hand with the man of her dreams. Yet, even in the midst of their joy, there were subtle signs of trouble. Ethan's smiles sometimes seemed strained, his compliments overly rehearsed. Maya, blinded by love, dismissed these as nerves or the weight of their new responsibilities. She could not have imagined that beneath Ethan's affectionate facade lay intentions far less noble than her own. As the days turned into months, Maya poured her heart and soul into their marriage. She dreamed of a life where they could grow together, supporting each other through life's trials. For Maya, love was a sacred bond, one that required commitment and sacrifice. She never questioned Ethan's devotion, trusting him implicitly with her heart and her fortune. Maya's unwavering faith in Ethan and her willingness to give him the world would later become the source of her deepest pain. But in those early days, she lived in the blissful ignorance of a love she believed was true. Her laughter filled their home, and her dreams of a happy future seemed within reach. Maya's heart, so full of love and hope, would soon face a betrayal that would shake her to her core. When Ethan walked out of her life, Maya felt as though the ground beneath her had disappeared. The man she had loved so deeply, the one she had trusted with her heart and dreams, had betrayed her in ways she could never have imagined. The weight of his deception crushed her, leaving her gasping for air in a world that suddenly felt empty and cruel. Nights were the hardest. Maya would sit alone in the spacious home they had shared, the silence echoing with memories of laughter and whispered promises. Her heart ached for the love she thought she had, but anger and disbelief clashed with her longing. She replayed every moment in her mind, questioning how she had missed the signs of his betrayal. Tears became her closest companion, spilling freely as she tried to understand how someone she had given everything to could turn his back on her. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It felt like an attack on her character, her judgment, and her belief in love. Maya's self-esteem crumbled, and for a time she believed she was unworthy of the happiness she had once dreamed of. Her friends and family were her lifeline. They surrounded her with love and support, refusing to let her drown in despair. Her mother, a strong woman who had weathered her own share of storms, reminded Maya of the resilience that ran in her blood. "You're stronger than this pain," her mother would say, holding her hand. "You're more than what he did to you." Gradually, Maya began to pick up the shattered pieces of her life. It wasn't easy. Each step forward felt like dragging her feet through quicksand. But she found solace in her work, pouring her pain into her philanthropic efforts. Helping others gave her a sense of purpose that pulled her out of her own darkness. Maya started small, volunteering at shelters for women who had suffered betrayal and abuse. Listening to their stories, she realized she wasn't alone. Her pain was mirrored in their eyes, their voices trembling with the same heartbreak she had endured. But it was also in these women that she saw hope, a hope that began to rekindle a spark within her. Her efforts soon grew into something greater. Maya established a foundation dedicated to empowering women, providing them with resources, counseling, and opportunities to rebuild their lives. She turned her personal pain into a mission to inspire and uplift others. In helping them, she found herself healing, piece by piece. Maya's transformation didn't go unnoticed. Stories of her resilience began to spread, and she became a symbol of strength for women everywhere. Social media lit up with messages from strangers who admired her courage and grace. "You've shown me that it's possible to rise after being broken," one message read, and Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. Though the scars of betrayal remained, they no longer defined her. Maya embraced her newfound strength, realizing that Ethan's actions were a reflection of his character, not hers. She stopped blaming herself for his choices and started celebrating the woman she was becoming. Her journey wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving. She rediscovered her worth, not as someone's wife or partner, but as an individual with boundless potential. Maya learned to love herself in a way she never had before, and with that, self-love came an inner peace that no one could take away. Maya's story became a beacon of hope, especially for women facing similar struggles. She reminded them that even in the depths of despair, there is a way forward. Her resilience showed the world that betrayal can break you temporarily, but it cannot destroy the essence of who you are. Maya's recovery was not just a personal victory, it was a triumph for everyone who believed in the power of rising above pain. When Ethan married Scarlett, he thought he had finally found the life he always wanted. Scarlett was the embodiment of everything he believed he deserved: young, glamorous, and free-spirited. She brought excitement into his life, a whirlwind of parties, exotic vacations, and social connections that made him feel like he had ascended to a world of luxury and indulgence. At first, their life together seemed like a dream. Scarlett's vibrant personality captivated everyone around her, and Ethan relished the attention they garnered as a couple. He compared this new chapter to his time with Maya, dismissing the quiet, nurturing love Maya had offered as something far less exciting. With Scarlett, he felt alive, basking in the thrill of their carefree existence. But as the initial euphoria faded, cracks began to show in their relationship. Scarlett's charm masked a manipulative side that Ethan hadn't seen, or had chosen to ignore. She was demanding, always pushing him to spend more, live larger, and keep up with her extravagant lifestyle. Ethan, desperate to keep her happy, stretched himself thin, trying to meet her expectations. Scarlett's glamorous veneer also hid a coldness that began to seep into their interactions. She was uninterested in Ethan's struggles or dreams, caring only about what he could provide. Unlike Maya, who had been his pillar of support, Scarlett offered no empathy or encouragement. Ethan started to feel the emptiness of their relationship, a hollow ache growing in the place where love should have been. Ethan's unease turned into suspicion when Scarlett began spending more nights out without him. She would brush off his questions with vague excuses, her carefree laughter masking the truth. Ethan told himself it was nothing, clinging to the illusion of their perfect life. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The truth came crashing down one evening when Ethan discovered Scarlett's infidelity. She was involved with another man, a wealthy and influential figure who could offer her even more than Ethan ever could. The betrayal hit Ethan like a punch to the gut, a cruel reminder of the very pain he had inflicted on Maya. The irony was not lost on him. He had abandoned a woman who loved him unconditionally, only to be betrayed by one who saw him as disposable. When confronted, Scarlett showed no remorse. She dismissed Ethan's anger and hurt with a wave of her hand, her tone icy and indifferent. "You knew what this was," she said, packing her bags without a second glance. Her departure was swift and brutal, leaving Ethan reeling in her wake. Scarlett didn't just leave Ethan. She took what little he had left. The lavish lifestyle she had demanded had drained his finances, leaving him teetering on the brink of ruin. Without Scarlett's social connections, the doors to the elite circles he had once been a part of slammed shut. Ethan found himself alone, penniless, and humiliated, a shadow of the man he once believed himself to be. As he sat in the empty apartment they had once shared, Ethan was consumed by regret. He thought of Maya, the woman who had given him everything and asked for nothing in return. He remembered her gentle smile, her unwavering support, and the love she had offered so freely. The contrast between Maya and Scarlett was stark, and it forced Ethan to confront the truth about his own choices. Ethan's fall from grace was a painful reckoning. He had pursued wealth and superficial beauty only to lose the one person who had truly cared for him. Now, stripped of everything he had chased, he was left with nothing but the weight of his mistakes. The betrayal he had suffered from Scarlett was his undoing, but it was also a mirror reflecting the pain he had caused Maya. In his darkest moments, Ethan realized that he had traded genuine love for a fleeting illusion. Scarlett's departure was a harsh lesson, teaching him that superficial charm could never replace the depth of a real connection. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt the crushing loneliness of his choices and the irreversible consequences of betraying a love that had been pure and true. Ethan's world had unraveled in a matter of weeks. The sleek apartment he had once filled with Scarlett's presence felt cold and empty. The extravagant lifestyle he had embraced, the parties, the superficial connections, all of it had come to an abrupt and painful end. The carefully curated image of success he had built with Scarlett was nothing more than a facade, a crumbling monument to his misguided choices. Alone in the silence, Ethan was left to face the harsh reality of his downfall. He had lost everything: his money, his status, and, most devastating of all, his sense of self. The man who had once been so confident, so sure of his own worth, now felt like a hollow shell. Every decision he had made, every step he had taken to pursue the fleeting thrill of wealth and luxury, had led him to this moment of complete and utter humiliation. But what crushed him most was the realization of what he had thrown away. Maya. The depth of her love, her unwavering loyalty, was now glaringly clear to him. Maya had given him her heart, her trust, and her strength, believing in him when he was struggling. She had supported him through his failures, encouraged him through his insecurities, and offered him a love that was pure and unconditional. And yet, he had betrayed her in the worst possible way. Ethan couldn't escape the memories of how Maya had always been there for him, how she had believed in him even when he hadn't believed in himself, how she had nurtured him with a love that was steady and unwavering, while he had only used her to climb higher. His guilt was suffocating, a constant presence that gnawed at him day and night. He replayed every moment in his mind, seeing her face as he had broken her trust, seeing her eyes filled with confusion and heartbreak when he left her for someone who could offer him nothing of real value. The weight of his mistakes bore down on him like a crushing boulder. Ethan tried to distract himself with fleeting pleasures, drowning his pain in alcohol and shallow distractions, but nothing worked. His mind was consumed by thoughts of Maya, and with every passing day the regret grew stronger. The success he had once craved now felt meaningless, hollow. Nothing could fill the emptiness that Maya's absence had left behind. He longed to apologize to her, to tell her how sorry he was for the pain he had caused. He wanted to beg for her forgiveness, to crawl on his knees and beg her to take him back, to somehow undo the damage he had inflicted. But each time he thought about reaching out, shame paralyzed him. How could he face her? How could he ever make up for what he had done? Ethan was terrified of what Maya might say, what she might feel. He knew that his actions had cut deeper than any words could heal. He had betrayed her trust, tarnished their love, and left her with nothing but the devastation of his selfish choices. The idea of facing her was unbearable. He had hurt the one person who had loved him without condition, and now he was left with nothing but the consequences of his own arrogance. In his loneliness, Ethan found himself confronting the truth. He was not the man he had once thought he was. The illusions of grandeur, the pride in his wealth and social standing, had all been stripped away. He had been a fool, blinded by ambition and selfishness. The man he had been with Maya, the man who had been loving and supportive, seemed like a distant memory, replaced by someone unrecognizable, someone who had caused immeasurable pain. But even in the depths of his despair, a small voice inside him urged him to seek redemption. The guilt was unbearable, but it also carried the seed of change. Ethan knew that to truly heal, to truly find peace, he would need to face Maya. He would need to humble himself, to admit his wrongs, and to hope that somehow she might find it in her heart to forgive him. Yet, the shame that held him back was like a heavy chain, keeping him prisoner to his own regret. Ethan could not yet bring himself to reach out. The fear of rejection, the fear that Maya would never look at him the same way again, was overwhelming. But deep down, he knew that he could never move forward without acknowledging the damage he had caused, and without seeking forgiveness from the one person who had truly mattered. After what felt like an eternity of soul-searching and agonizing regret, Ethan finally summoned the courage to face the consequences of his actions. The weight of his mistakes was unbearable, yet he knew deep down that he could not move forward without confronting them head-on. He had spent days, weeks even, rehearsing what he would say, but no words seemed sufficient. Nothing could undo the hurt he had caused, but perhaps he could offer a glimmer of redemption by at least showing Maya how truly sorry he was. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he stood outside Maya's doorstep, drenched in sweat and trembling with fear. He was no longer the man who had once believed he was entitled to everything he wanted. The man standing there was broken, humiliated, and desperate for a chance to make amends. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and his face etched with the toll his journey of guilt and regret had taken on him. He had never felt so vulnerable, so small. The doorbell rang, and, as he waited for the sound of her footsteps approaching, Ethan's mind raced. He tried to steady his breathing, to calm the storm inside him, but the emotions were overwhelming. What would Maya think of him now? Would she even want to see him? Would she allow him to speak? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he stood there, knowing that he could not turn back now. When the door finally opened, Maya stood before him, her posture straight, her face calm, but unreadable. Time had passed since their last encounter, and in that time, Maya had transformed. No longer the woman who had blindly trusted him, she was now a version of herself that radiated strength and confidence. Her eyes held a quiet power, a wisdom that came from the pain of betrayal, but also from the resilience she had found in herself. Ethan saw that she had grown in ways he had never imagined. Her beauty had always been undeniable, but now it was a beauty forged by experience, by the trials she had endured and overcome. He felt an overwhelming sense of guilt, knowing that he was the cause of much of her pain. Yet, in that moment, he also felt something else. A deep, unspoken respect for the woman before him. "Maya," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. What I did to you. I can never undo it. I was selfish. I was a fool. But I've been thinking about you every single day, and I can't live with myself knowing I hurt you the way I did." His words tumbled out in a rush, a mixture of shame, sorrow, and desperation. He looked into her eyes, hoping to see some sign of the woman he had once known, but all he saw was calm composure. Maya's face remained neutral, giving nothing away, and that silence was like a weight pressing on his chest. He fought to hold back tears, but they came anyway. Tears of regret, tears of realization that he had destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to him. "I don't expect anything from you," Ethan continued, his voice softening. "But I need to tell you how much you meant to me. You were everything I needed, and I threw it all away. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'll live with this guilt for the rest of my life. But I need you to know the truth. I wish I could go back, but I can't. All I can do is beg for your forgiveness, and if you can't give that, I will understand. But please, please know how sorry I am." Maya stood there, listening intently to his confession. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the anguish in his voice, and the rawness of his regret. For a brief moment, she felt a flicker of sympathy for him. The man she had once loved. The man who was now broken and humbled by the weight of his own actions. She could hear the truth in his words, feel the depth of his remorse. But she also knew something important. His apology didn't change the fact that he had betrayed her. It didn't erase the pain he had caused. Maya remained composed, her heart racing with conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to reach out and comfort him, to forgive him, and offer him the solace he was seeking. But another part of her knew that forgiveness wasn't something she could give him, just because he was sorry. It had to come from within her, a deep and intentional choice to let go of the anger and hurt. She looked at him for a long moment, taking in his tear-streaked face, the trembling hands that clutched at his jacket, and the vulnerability that he had never shown her before. Ethan's apology was genuine, but Maya understood that forgiveness wasn't something to be rushed. She didn't owe him a quick resolution, and she needed time to process her feelings. "I hear you, Ethan," she said quietly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I hear your regret, and I appreciate your honesty. But forgiveness, that's something I need to give myself first, not you." Maya's words hung in the air between them, a delicate balance of strength and compassion. Ethan nodded, understanding the weight of her response. He wasn't expecting her to forgive him on the spot. He just needed to hear that she was okay, that she had found her own peace. "I won't push you, Maya," he said, his voice filled with both relief and resignation. "I just needed you to know the truth. I hope, one day, you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Maya nodded, her gaze softening just slightly, though the wall she had built around her heart remained intact. She didn't offer him any false hope, but she did give him something more powerful than any words: her calm understanding. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped back, a final, quiet gesture of respect. As he turned away, he realized that this moment, this painful confrontation, had been a necessary step on his own path to redemption. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that Maya, the woman who had loved him unconditionally, was now someone he could never take for granted again. Maya sat alone in her quiet living room, the weight of the decision before her pressing down on her like an unbearable storm. Ethan had come to her, broken and remorseful, offering the apology she had longed to hear. Yet, even as he spoke, something within her hesitated. The betrayal still stung deeply, a raw wound that she couldn't fully heal. She had loved him so fiercely, so completely, and in return he had shattered her trust, discarded her like she was nothing more than a stepping stone in his climb to success. Her mind swirled with conflicting emotions. Her friends, her family, everyone who loved her, urged her to stand firm, to never let Ethan back into her life. They reminded her of his selfishness, of how he had abandoned her for the hollow promises of another woman. "He doesn't deserve you, Maya," they would say. "You've been through enough, don't let him hurt you again." But Maya knew deep down that their advice, though well-meaning, was rooted in anger and fear. They had watched her suffer, and in their desire to protect her, they could only see the surface of her pain. They couldn't feel the echo of the love she had once shared with Ethan, the way he had made her feel seen, heard, and valued, before he destroyed it all. To them, he was a villain. To her, he was a man she had once believed in, a man she had loved beyond measure. Her heart ached as she thought about the years they had spent together, the good times, the laughter, the tenderness. She remembered the way he had once looked at her, the way he had held her when she was scared, the way he had whispered promises of forever. Could she really just erase all of that? Could she let go of the memories that had once made her feel like she had everything she needed in the world? Yet as much as she longed to hold on to that love, she knew that Ethan's betrayal had shattered something irreplaceable between them. She had given him everything, her heart, her trust, her time, and he had taken it for granted. He had used her kindness, her loyalty, as if it were disposable. Maya had to face the hard truth. The man she had once loved had been selfish, manipulative, and ultimately cruel. The love they had was now a painful memory, a ghost of what it could have been. Still, there was another part of her that couldn't ignore the man standing before her at her doorstep, the man who had admitted his mistakes and begged for forgiveness. As much as she wanted to hate him, to shut him out completely, she couldn't deny the sincerity in his eyes. She saw the brokenness in him, the same brokenness she had felt when he first left. In his confession, Maya had recognized something she had not expected: growth. Ethan had learned, painfully and humbly, that what he had done was wrong. For the first time, he had taken full responsibility for the hurt he had caused. He had admitted his flaws, his arrogance, his selfishness. Maya couldn't deny that she felt a flicker of compassion for him, but compassion didn't mean reconciliation. Forgiving him didn't mean she had to welcome him back into her life, into her heart. Forgiveness, she knew, was about freeing herself from the chains of bitterness and anger, about not allowing his betrayal to define her any longer. But could she really forgive him? Could she let go of the anger, the betrayal, the heartbreak? Maya turned to the wisdom that had always guided her, the values that had shaped her sense of self. Faith had always been her anchor, her steady source of strength. In the quiet moments of prayer, she had found solace, and it was in those moments that the answer began to crystallize. Forgiveness was not about excusing the wrongs of the past. It was about releasing herself from the hold those wrongs had on her heart. It was about finding peace within herself, even if it meant choosing a painful path. She remembered the words of her grandmother, words that had stuck with her through every trial. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself, not to the one who hurt you. Maya understood now that holding on to resentment would only keep her chained to the past, to the pain, to Ethan. She deserved more than that. She deserved freedom, peace, and the ability to move forward. Her heart still ached for the man she had once loved, but Maya realized that love had to be based on trust, respect, and honesty. Ethan had violated those fundamental principles, and no amount of remorse could change the fact that he had broken her in a way that could never be fixed. But forgiveness would allow her to heal. Forgiveness would allow her to rise above the hurt and let go of the anger that had been festering inside her for so long. As Maya made her decision, she felt a wave of clarity wash over her. She would forgive Ethan, not for him, but for herself. She would release the bitterness, the anger, the pain, and allow herself to heal. But she would also let go of the dream she had once held so tightly, that dream of a life with him, of a love that had once seemed unbreakable. It was time to move on, to build a future where she could stand strong, independent, and whole. Maya's eyes closed as she took a deep breath, her decision final. She would not be defined by her past. She would choose peace, not bitterness. And in doing so, she would reclaim her life and her power. The day Maya had anticipated, dreaded even, had finally come. It was a day that held both closure and liberation. After much reflection and soul-searching, she had come to a decision. She had chosen forgiveness. Not because Ethan deserved it, but because she deserved peace. She needed to reclaim her life, her heart, and her sense of self-worth. The anger, the resentment, the bitterness, she could no longer carry them. Forgiveness was her way of freeing herself from the past, of allowing her spirit to heal and grow. Maya sat across from Ethan at a small cafe, the place where they had once shared their dreams, their laughter, and their love. Now, the air between them was thick with tension, but also with the unspoken understanding that things could never go back to the way they were. Maya had already made peace with that fact. She no longer saw Ethan as the man she once loved, but as a lesson, a painful but necessary chapter in her journey toward self-discovery. Ethan sat across from her, his face drawn, his eyes hollow with exhaustion. The once proud man who had walked away from her so callously was now broken and vulnerable. He had lost everything, his wealth, his status, his pride, and in the end, he had nothing left but his guilt and regret. He had come to Maya in search of redemption, but deep down, he knew there was no quick fix for the harm he had caused. The trust he had shattered could never be rebuilt overnight. "I don't know where to begin, Maya," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you for it. I've hurt you in ways I can never undo. The woman you were to me, the love you gave me. I took it all for granted, and now I realize how much I've lost. I'll never be the man you needed me to be, but if there's any chance, please let me make it right." Maya looked at him, her eyes calm but filled with depth. She could feel the sincerity in his words, the desperation in his voice. And yet, she also felt the weight of her own truth, the truth that she could no longer hold on to the man who had betrayed her so completely. Her heart had been broken, and though she could forgive, she could never forget. "Ethan," Maya began softly, her voice steady, "I've spent a long time thinking about this, about what you did, about the love we shared, and about how much pain I've carried because of you. For so long, I blamed you. I hated you, and I let that anger consume me. But I've learned something through this whole process. Forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me. It's for my peace, my healing. I've had to let go of the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, because they were holding me back from moving forward, from living the life I deserve. Ethan's eyes widened with surprise, and for a moment Maya could see the hope flicker in his gaze. He leaned forward, his voice trembling. So, you forgive me? Maya took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering as she met his eyes. I forgive you, Ethan, I do. But I'm not forgiving you for your sake. I'm doing this for me. I'm choosing to let go of the pain you caused me. I'm choosing peace. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat as the weight of her words hit him. He had expected her to be angry, to lash out, to tell him he would never be welcome in her life again. But this was different. This was grace. This was a level of strength and compassion he hadn't thought possible. Maya had every reason to despise him, to hold on to the hurt he had caused. But instead, she was offering him forgiveness, a gift that he didn't deserve, but one that he could never forget. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Ethan whispered, tears welling up in his eyes. I'll never be able to make up for the damage I've done. But Maya, this means more to me than I can ever express. Maya nodded, her heart heavy, but full of clarity. Forgiving you doesn't mean that we can go back to the way things were. That chapter of my life is over, Ethan. And as much as it hurts to admit, it's time for me to move on. I've learned to value myself in ways I never did before. I've learned that I deserve to be loved and respected, and that means I can't settle for anything less. Ethan's chest tightened as he absorbed the weight of her words. He had known, deep down, that Maya could never love him the same way again, but hearing her say it out loud was a gut punch. He had lost her, not just in the romantic sense, but in every sense of the word. Maya was a woman transformed, a woman who had found her strength, her self-worth. And Ethan? Ethan was left with the ruins of his own making. I understand, Ethan said softly, his voice breaking. I won't ask you to take me back. I don't think I could ever live with myself if you did. But I hope one day you can find it in your heart to see me as someone who has learned, someone who has changed. You were my everything, Maya, and I destroyed it. I'll live with that for the rest of my life. Maya sat back, her heart full of both sorrow and liberation. She had made her choice. She had chosen herself. Choosing forgiveness had freed her from the weight of Ethan's betrayal, but it also meant that she was letting go of the dream she once had with him. It was time for her to focus on her future, to nurture the woman she had become. Strong, resilient, and unafraid to live authentically. Goodbye, Ethan, Maya said softly, her voice full of finality, but also a quiet strength. I forgive you, but this is where our story ends. Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face as he stood up, a broken man. He didn't have the words to express the gratitude he felt. All he could do was nod and walk away, knowing that Maya had given him something priceless, something he could never repay. Maya sat there for a long time, the weight of the conversation settling over her. But as the minutes passed, she felt lighter. Forgiveness had not been easy, but it had been necessary. It had been a step toward reclaiming her own happiness, her own peace. And for the first time in a long time, she felt free. Maya's decision to forgive Ethan rippled through the lives of everyone around her, like a stone thrown into the still waters of her community. At first, many were skeptical, questioning how she could forgive someone who had hurt her so deeply. But as Maya shared her story, her truth became undeniable. Forgiveness was not just about Ethan. It was about her. It was about reclaiming her power, her peace, and her future. People began to see Maya not just as a woman who had been betrayed, but as a woman who had risen above her pain with dignity and grace. She became a symbol of strength for those who had been broken, for those who had felt lost and alone in the aftermath of their own struggles. Her journey resonated with women from all walks of life. Women who had been cheated on, abandoned, or left to heal from wounds they couldn't heal on their own. Maya became a beacon of hope, showing them that they could rise from the ashes of their pain and rebuild their lives. Through her philanthropic work, Maya began to speak openly about her experience. She hosted seminars, participated in panel discussions, and wrote articles that explored the power of self-worth, resilience, and forgiveness. She urged others to recognize their own value, to understand that their worth was not tied to the actions of others. Maya emphasized that true healing comes from within. It is the choice to forgive, not for the other person, but for yourself. That opens the door to peace and freedom. Her message spread like wildfire. Women who had once felt powerless, invisible, or broken began to reclaim their lives. Maya's story became an example of how you could not only survive betrayal, but thrive in spite of it. She taught them that their scars did not define them. They were marks of survival, of strength, and of resilience. And above all, she showed them that they could choose to forgive, not to forget, but to heal and move forward. But Maya's influence didn't stop there. As her story gained traction, even men began to take notice. Ethan, too, saw the impact of Maya's strength, and it had a profound effect on him. For the first time, he understood that his mistakes were not just personal, they had affected others. His betrayal had not only crushed Maya, but it had also broken the trust of those around him. As he reflected on his own journey of guilt and regret, Ethan realized that forgiveness, like Maya had shown him, was not a gift that was easily given, but a transformative one. Ethan's journey was not easy, but it was necessary. Maya's act of forgiveness had planted a seed in his heart, and he began to work on rebuilding his life with integrity. He reached out to those he had wronged, tried to make amends, and, most importantly, committed himself to becoming a better person. Maya had given him the chance to redeem himself, but he knew it was his responsibility to make it count. He had to live with the consequences of his actions, but he could choose to move forward with humility and accountability. In the months that followed, Ethan's transformation was slow but steady. He became involved in charity work, using his time and resources to help others who had experienced the kind of pain he had caused. Maya watched from a distance, but there was no bitterness in her heart. She saw Ethan's efforts as part of his own healing, and she hoped that one day he could truly find peace with himself. Maya, on the other hand, flourished. She grew more confident in herself and her mission. The women who had once looked up to her as a symbol of strength now sought her advice and guidance. Maya shared with them the tools she had used to heal: self-love, self-respect, and forgiveness. She had learned that to truly love and respect others, you had to start by loving and respecting yourself first. And sometimes, that meant letting go of the hurt that others had caused you, so you could make room for the love and happiness that you deserved. Her advocacy work grew exponentially. Maya's story was featured in major publications, and she became a sought-after speaker at conferences and events around the world. She shared the lessons she had learned, not just about forgiveness, but about the importance of setting boundaries, of standing firm in your beliefs, and of never compromising your worth for anyone. In a quiet moment of reflection, Maya realized that her forgiveness had not just been an act of kindness, it had been an act of love. She had loved herself enough to let go of the anger that threatened to consume her. She had loved herself enough to forgive Ethan, not for his sake, but for her own peace. And in doing so, she had become a role model for so many others. Maya had found strength in her vulnerability, and in doing so, she had helped others find their own strength. She had proven that the human spirit could endure, even in the face of betrayal, and that the power to heal was within each of us. Maya had shown that, Though the road to recovery was long and painful, it was always worth it. Through her journey, Maya had learned that forgiveness was not just a gift you give to others, it was a gift you give to yourself. By forgiving, you release the chains that bind you to the past and open yourself up to the future. And in the end, that future was hers to create. Her story was no longer just about Ethan. It was about Maya. It was about her strength, her resilience, and her unwavering commitment to becoming the best version of herself. And in doing so, she had taught the world one of the most powerful lessons of all, that true peace comes not from the actions of others, but from within. True strength lies in forgiveness, but forgiveness does not mean compromising self-respect. Love must be built on trust and mutual respect, and betrayal carries heavy consequences. Maya's journey teaches us that self-worth and resilience can turn pain into purpose, inspiring others to rise above adversity.